Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Good evening, team. It's 8 o'clock and I'm Laurence Fox. Tonight, after many local councils have objected to plans by the Home Office to house asylum seekers in hotels across the country, we're looking into landlords being offered to rent and house asylum seekers in residential accommodation. Coming to a street near you soon. Then, net zero croc-loving doomsday cultists are rejoicing at the news that a shipping company has a wind-powered vessels to transport your coal, nonetheless. Well, it's a step in the right direction, isn't it? And lastly, those fuzzy-jumpered little pollinators will be waking up soon. Should the government stop using banned pesticide and give bees a chance? And don't forget, most importantly, I want to hear from you. Send me your views this way at gbviews@gbnews.uk or tweet me at LozzaFox. That's all coming up after the headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Laurence, thank you. Good evening to you. The top story on GB News tonight, the former Chancellor Nadhim Zahawi has given HMRC approval to release files relating to his tax affairs to the independent investigator. It follows Chief Executive Jim Harrer telling MPs there are no penalties for innocent errors after being questioned by the Public Accounts Committee. The Tory party chairman Zahawi is facing calls to resign after it emerged he paid a penalty to HMRC while he was Chancellor. The Prime Minister says no issues are raised to him when he appointed him to his cabinet role.
Because Nadhim Zahawi himself put a statement into the public domain and there was other reporting, there are questions to answer, and that's why I asked the independent advisor to conduct an investigation to fully establish the facts and provide advice to me about Nadhim Zahawi's compliance with the ministerial code.
Now, news away from home, at least 11 people have died in a Russian missile strike in Ukraine today. That's after the US and Germany pledged to supply the country with military hardware. More than 10 people were wounded in the attacks, which covered 11 regions, including the capital, Kyiv. Germany's defence minister says he expects the first Leopard 2 tanks to arrive in Ukraine by the end of March, as are the UK's Challenger 2 tanks. Russia has responded, with the Kremlin saying the deliveries of military hardware amounted to direct involvement in the conflict by the West. Scotland's First Minister has confirmed a transgender person convicted of rape will not be sent to an all-female prison. Earlier this week, Isla Bryson was found guilty of raping 2 women before choosing to change his gender to female. At First Minister's questions, Nicola Sturgeon addressed the row and whether Bryson should be held at a female facility called Corton Vale Prison. She also confirmed a risk assessment is being carried out by the Scottish Prison Service. Andrew Bridgen has threatened to sue the former Health Secretary Matt Hancock for defamation following an online post he retweeted about the COVID jab. Early this month, the North West Leicestershire MP was stripped of the Tory whip after retweeting a post by a consultant cardiologist which said the number of people suffering with heart problems after having the COVID vaccine was the biggest crime against humanity since the Holocaust. Matt Hancock referred to Bridgen's comments as anti-Semitic in the House of Commons, a statement which Bridgen has refuted. News coming to us within the last hour here at GB News. A man has been charged with a series of terror offences after he was found with a suspicious package at a hospital in Leeds. 27-year-old Mohammed Farouk has been in police custody since his arrest at St James's Hospital last Friday. Following an investigation led by the counter-terrorism police, he's been charged with several offences, including preparing an act of terrorism and keeping an offensive weapon with intent to endanger life or property. He's going to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court via video link tomorrow. And lastly, His Majesty the King has been given a warm welcome during his first visit to the new Africa Centre in South London. The King spoke to staff and visitors and heard how the centre provides a home away from home for Africans living in the UK. The new building is in a 1960s former office block that's been transformed into a community hub for African culture and heritage. That's your latest news. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News, the People's Channel, where now it's time for Laurence Fox.
Prison for the sentence of his dreams, or magazine covers of bearded, pregnant, breastless men, hands held in loving, protective grasp of their heavy, pregnant bellies, lips locked in tender embrace with a made-up man, long blonde hair cascading down his back. The world can sometimes feel like a stomach-churning, never-ending roller coaster ride one just wants to get off. In these last years, if these last years have taught us anything, it's that the social fabric is extremely fragile and it doesn't take much to tear it apart. We have also learned that once people start tearing at it, they get an appetite for it and it becomes harder and harder to get them to stop. Tear it all down, man. Teach the kids about their bodies and sex and freedom. Give them the pills which turn them into girls. It's 2023, man. Put your dress on. Let's go for a drink. It's going to be a wild, wild ride. It seems that society is going in one of two directions. Either this endless, dizzying roller coaster ride continues on, speeding up and up and up, or it is brought to a sudden, painful and abrupt stop. One way is to stay on this mass psychosis ride of viciously compelled conformity and reality denial, dressed up as hyperliberalism, where politicians, pop stars, social media and movie stars all behave like they poured a jug of LSD on their cornflakes every morning instead of milk, and we, the sane, just have to nod along confused, being kind and accepting, for fear of damaging their feelings, their self-esteem, or indeed our own careers. This is my identity, my truth, my lived experience, me, mine. Clean the ocean, save the planet, wear a mask, get vaccinated, be free, man, the world is coming to an end. The roller coaster winds on faster and faster, jarring and shaking its sickly passengers, as the icons of our time climb the stairs of their private jets in blood diamond-studded, rainbow-coloured denim jackets emblazoned with Extinction Rebellion badges, babbling incoherently about climate change, social justice, Black Lives Matter, and reparations. These hyper-hippies, so beloved of the younger generation, demand acceptance, obedience, and love, whilst displaying none of the above. They are, as I so often say, the exact thing they accuse us of. Saint Megan of the latter-day perfection drags us along, whether we like it or not, on a hurly-burly journey towards greater forgiveness, greater equity, and greater understanding. Her tone alone, compelling, open, generous and kind, unless you happen to be Jeremy Clarkson, whose attempt at a sincere apology was run down in the street, reversed back over and then shot repeatedly with a 12-bore shotgun. The social fabric is tearing apart and we don't seem to be able to do anything about it. Yet still, the dizzying ride goes on, more and more out of control. But there is another way this ride can go. As the fabric continues to rip and tear, a deep and fundamental loss of trust between the citizen and the state. I hear more and more people questioning more and more of everything. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. The litany of lies that we've had to swallow, digest, regurgitate, and then swallow again, non-stop for 3 years, has finally caught up with us and has put us in a fevered dream. A fleeting but suspicious look when your trusted doctor suggests you try some new medication or other. A sense that sacred Houses of Parliament may just be a fancy building filled with books, baubles and crooks, each playing their part in some strange and surreal drama which affects each of our lives. A sense that everything is a performance. We know that something is wrong, but we cannot join the dots. The dots were cast into the wind to the farthest reaches of the earth so that we may never join them again. So, demoralised and confused, we hang on, waiting for the ride to stop, hoping that soon the churning, gurning madness will end. Eyes closed, fists clenched, but the ride doesn't stop and we can't get off. And then, at some point, not all at once, but in a steady and growing stream, people begin to open their eyes and wake up. Nothing is what it seems. Nothing we have been told is true, and our trust is gone. This roller coaster is not safe. It needs to stop. And with one collective heave, the brake is applied. We sit still, dazed for a moment, and then we hear the quiet wails of despair, turning to anger as people wrench themselves from their seats, clamber down to the ground, and begin to tear the whole fairground apart. Ravenous, furious, and bent on revenge as they seek out those who played them in this game. The social fabric is easy to tear. Time to decide to go or repair. But before anything else, we wanted to ask you, completely unrelated to that mad Alice in Wonderland rant that I just went on, what awful team building should the Cabinet have to do at Chequers? Email your views at gbnews.uk or tweet GBNews or me directly at LozofFox. One of the many troubling aspects of this migrant hotel experiment are the corporate interests who are profiting from it. Filling 4-star local hotels with a mixture of Albanian, Eritrean and Afghan men comes with lucrative contracts. A leaked email from Serco employee recently revealed how cheerful they are about the situation. It read, "We currently have 40,000 asylum seekers staying in hotels, and our goal is to get as many people as we can into homes in local communities." So there we are. Thousands of mostly male asylum seekers, many claiming to be 14 but actually in their 20s, coming from countries renowned for their liberal democracy like Afghanistan, Iraq and Syria, coming to a street near you soon. Do you share their goal to get as many of these people into your local community, and are you keen to pay for it? Well, you don't get a say in that, unfortunately. Is the house next door to you empty? Were you wondering who your next door neighbours might be? Worry not, Serco have it in hand. Look at these wonderful perks that they have. Do you see that bottom left square there, where it says utilities and council tax bills paid by Serco? Yeah, that was a typo. It's meant to say utilities and council tax paid by you. Kelvin McKenzie joins me now to be calm and rational and not upset about anything. Kelvin, what do you think? You a big fan of Serco?
Well, they're there to make money. And at the moment, what is going to happen, anybody who knows anything about landlords, anybody who knows anything about housing right now, knows we are very short of housing, and actually rents are literally, no matter where you go in the country, with a few exceptions, I suspect, are literally through the roof. London, for instance, London, the South East, which is the area I know best, through the roof. So we're now going to have, we'll say this year, supposing we say 50,000 of our Channel chums come across. We've got 150,000 out there already in hotels. They're going to move to, the idea is to move them to homes. They are going to put new boilers in, new kitchens in, new bathrooms in, and then there will be an adjustment on the rent. It will be upwards, not downwards. Well, what does that mean for the rents for everybody else? Because that's an amount of housing which has disappeared, not available to the indigenous group. It's now going to go to, well, 150,000 plus 50,000 today. That would be the equivalent of the whole of Durham, every house in Durham now being occupied by migrants. Now,
but isn't that a good idea? That, you know, you've got these people who've come to Britain. We haven't stopped them, so it's not, you know, we didn't stop them at source. So they're now here. They're in hotels. Isn't the right thing to do to help the next stage of assimilation to house them? Well, I mean, obviously they should.
Well, OK. So what is going to happen with that amount of housing reduced from the market? It's gone to these migrants. I mean, our problem is we have got to stop them. There is no issue. The cost to us is incredible. But what about the other aspect to it? Now, this is only a small aspect to it. But these people come from countries which are quite warm. They come over here and it's quite cold. Not only is it quite cold, the energy bills are through the roof. But if you're not going to pay the energy bills, because all the utility bills are going to be paid by the taxpayer, what would you do? What would you do? It'd be equivalent of being a student. Oh, yeah, well, somebody else is paying. Up it goes. So instead of 16, 17, 18, and everybody's thinking, oh, God, this is terrible, boom, up. If I were them, I'd be probably up at 23, 24, 25, whatever, to keep my family
warm, 25. But
25, look, if you come from various parts of the world, that might be even considered quite a cold day.
But it does make you think why... Well, two things. It does make you think, why don't these people stop in other countries on the way to freebie Britain? But, you know, aren't you being a bit hard on them? You know, where's your compassion, your genuine human compassion? Where is it?
Do you know what? Look, I am worried about our country. I'm not worried... You know, my compassion is neither here nor there in all this. If you knocked on any door in Britain today, with some notable exceptions, you would have people say, you either solve this, or we're voting another way, or we're going to rise up.
What are they going to vote for, though?
I agree. It's going to get worse. Under Labour, I have no idea what's going to be happening. I presume they'll be building entire blocks in order to take these people on. But we have to solve this issue. It's no good our Prime Minister, whether it's Labour, Liberal, Tory, just going to bed at night thinking, oh, well, I got through another day.
Why can't
we got the Times reports tonight that 1,000 migrants have arrived already in the coldest month of the year, in which there's, you know, there's the seas are terrible, right? So
no, not good for wind energy either when it's so calm.
OK.
To heat the houses with.
OK, well, there we are. So in that case, you know, up it all goes again. So my plea to this is whether Serco are making money, the landlords are making money, the hotels aren't then going to be making money, is not the issue. The issue is there has to be a rather tough solving of this crisis. Otherwise, we carry on like this. Look, they know that we can't do anything about it. They also know, these are the smugglers, they also know that come Labour, it's going to be, basically, it feels like an open house. This is an opportunity for the Conservative Party to lead, and were they to solve it in a manner which did solve it, they would get a reward at the polling booth.
Do you get a feeling that the Conservative Party don't want to solve it because they want to be elected out of office and be in opposition for a while? I get the feeling that every decision they make is to, like, get out.
I think most people think that this is not a Conservative Party at all.
So what's your solution? If I said to you, right, Kelvin, here, can you put on this cap, you're now immigration's czar, what would you do?
I tell you what I would do. I would do something which would create probably a massive problem. I would actually get the SAS to land in France and take out the smugglers in the same way as the Israeli took out the jihadists this morning in Palestine. These people are our mortal enemy, are causing us a financial and political crisis, and we should treat them as such.
So just lob in the SAS.
Yep.
People smugglers.
Yep.
And job done.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if Emmanuel Macron goes, thanks, merci, pas non merci?
Look, can I be honest with you? It is way beyond me worrying about whether somebody who claims to be an ally, right, is going to do anything about that. My bet is that he'd be delighted that it would be solved. Yeah, it would cause a big problem, but the biggest problem would be solved. There wouldn't be any more of this migration issue. It's eking out into our society, and I think it's causing, I think, the Conservative problem. They don't know whether they're Conservatives or not anymore. If you take old Rishi, he's saying to himself, when this is all over, I'll be chairman of a rather large private equity, and I'll be making, you know, 12 million a year, and I won't have to wake up to find out that I have a guy who used to be the Chancellor, potentially, well, he did pay a penalty for it, fiddling his taxes. What a moment we have arrived in. I can't
It was a careless, not deliberate, Mr. Mackenzie.
But
how dare you come in here and say that about Nadhim Zahawi? I was trying to be calm with you. It was careless, not deliberate.
That is true. And
oh, my Lord.
It was so careless.
How dare you impugn his reputation?
30% of it.
It's a small matter of millions.
Exactly.
So let's pop get our 9mm out, screw on the silencers, send James Bond over.
Yeah.
How far do we go, though? Do we stop in France, or can we
can go into Belgium, and we might go into Holland as well. It doesn't matter. We can't just... No, there will be people watching this saying I've gone even madder than normal, and others will be saying, hey, that's not a bad idea. All I am suggesting is that we cannot just sit here and say, oh, well, fancy another cup of tea, a glass of red or something, and just say we've got to just get on with it. We have to treat it as a war footing. And once we treat it as a war footing, I honestly think we can solve it.
Speaking of war footing, now that Rishi has brought everyone to Chequers for a big team-building exercise where he can work out how to be even more socialist, what give us a game that you think they should play together to increase each other's self-confidence, etc.? Well,
first of all, I think you should just fire Zahawi and just end that issue and just say, honestly, Najib, I love you madly.
That's not team building, though, Kelvin.
We're just getting rid of you. We're dumping you out. And I think they have...
Terrible.
They have simply got to say, we face massive...
Bonding, not sacking.
No. In order to move on, you have to let go, as you well know. You've got to say, Nadeem, it's been fantastic. You've been great. Your fiddling was of astonishing variety. You've just got to go. So you have to clear out the stable. It's ridiculous. And you've got Dominic Raab there. Everybody in the world says that he's been vile and all the rest of it. I'm astonished that he hasn't called it a day himself.
Raab denies that he's vile.
I know, but he's got... Look, perhaps he's not vile, but he's got 24 people who now say he is vile. Look, you have to sort this out. The other issue is that we are skint. Totally and completely skint. There was a shocking piece in the FT about 3 days ago. If you read that, but you pack your bags and actually you probably head to America and just on a boat, you get the hell out of this country. We are in a degree of trouble for some time. But the answer is not to say, I tell you what, slash the taxes. We haven't got any money. We haven't got any money to give anybody in tax anyway.
I'd love it if you were in charge. It'd be like send in the troops.
Yeah.
And there are no team-building exercises.
Yeah, there are no...
Fire everybody.
We are in a... Look, you can be as gloomy as you like, but we are in a degree of trouble right now, and we need some really vile solutions, I'm afraid. Well, I'm the man to supply them. Don't worry about that.
I thought I was in a bit of a... mood today. But anyway, thank you, Kelvin. We contacted the Home Office and Serco. Unfortunately, they didn't provide us with any statements. Anyway, coming up, it's the lefty-leading Guardian trying to hide a dirty little secret. Back in 3.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
He's the king of breakfast TV, and he's back. Eamon Holmes, back on the TV with me this morning.
Even remember my name.
I know, it's been 4 months. You have holy water by your bed?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
already to bless.
Yeah. Oh, Eamon. Oh.
Why do you not believe anything I say?
Eamon Holmes back on GB News Breakfast at 6 a.m.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance.
Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is a really good one. Now, how's this for juxtaposition? Producers from The Guardian have accused the newspaper of institutional racism after they were brought in to create a podcast using The Guardian's founding father, who had links to the slave trade, surprise, surprise, John Edward Taylor, as a springboard to investigate the legacies of racism. After producers started delving into its history, the newspaper didn't want to hear any more about it, accusing them of bringing their own trauma baggage to work. Now, let me get this straight. A left-wing news organisation tries to hold themselves accountable for their own history. Once being told of said accountabilities, they do not want to be accountable. How surprising. So, joining me now to chat about this research is analyst and culture writer Dr. Rakib Ahsan. Rakib, this is a really good one, isn't it?
Oh, I think what it shows, Laurence, is just identity politics eating itself alive in a way, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Guardian here trying to do a soul-searching exercise when it comes to its previous links with the slave trade and sympathy with the Confederacy. But now it's facing complaints over the fact that when it came to the orchestration of the project, they were looking to whitewash aspects of its own history. The fact that it wasn't very comfortable. There was the lack of transparency as well. So I think what you see is organisations who talk a great deal about anti-racism, when it comes to their own standards, it doesn't go quite according to plan, does it?
So why does hypocrisy seem to just completely go past these people on the far left? Why do they just not care about their own hypocrisy? They just go, it's trauma.
I think it's the possibility that they think that they're on the right side,
right,
in terms of morality. And I think that blinds them to their own hypocrisies when it comes to matters of race and equality. And I think that if The Guardian was a truly anti-racist institution, they would conduct a project like this in a transparent manner. And they'd also treat their ethnically diverse workforce in a way that they felt like there was a sense of belonging and they were being supported by those high up in the organisation. So what it shows that I think institutions such as The Guardian, they're very good at accusing other organisations of failing to live up to their anti-racist expectations. But I think that a serious period of introspection is needed.
And what would your advice be to the Guardian now? You'd say an open, transparent, throw open all the books, let everybody know, make a truthful podcast about yourselves, be critical about yourselves, and show to the world that we don't just laugh at you when your newsfeed comes past.
Well, if you're an institution that wants to be a standard bearer when it comes to anti-racist activity, you have to be honest about your own history. And the reality of the matter is The Guardian, numerous times, it's talked about a variety of institutions, their links to the slave trade, how they've sympathised with, problematic regimes in the past. But if you're going to do that, then you have to have very strong standards when it comes to your own credentials on those fronts.
Should they be paying Femi reparations?
I think that's a very difficult question to answer, truth be told. I think that when you're looking at these kind of issues, I'll be honest, I think that we can definitely talk about the slave trade, how institutions can atone for their past. I know that the Church of England have opened up a fund to help groups which have been, suffering
100 million quid, where did that come from?
I would have thought that they would have put their parishes and congregations first. And the irony is, Laurence, is that you have parts of London where you have ethnic minority communities that are stumping up the cash to renovate churches. So I think they could do with more support from the Church of England on that front. But I do think that there's certainly a debate to be had where you have organisations, they like to lecture others on anti-racism. When it comes to their own credentials on that front, they're certainly lacking.
But it really irritates and upsets people. We saw what they did with Black Boys Lane and they renamed it whatever they've renamed it. And within a day, someone's gone and spray painted it out. They put in their windows Black Boys Lane. there's obviously a very overwhelming public reaction not to obliterate history and not to judge the past, just to allow it to be. Talk about it. But why do the media and you know, this sort of very sort of top-end media elite class think that it's a fine thing to do this Guardianista stuff and this renaming of Black Boys Lane and all this woke rubbish when the public hate it?
Well, I think that we have a great many number of white saviours with a very serious sort of ultra-liberal complex where they feel like they need to be offended on the behalf of ethnic and racial minorities. It's very interesting when you talk about that Black Boy Lane episode. Hardly any black British people in that particular area complained about it. So I think that there's certainly something to be said about history is inherently very complicated. And I think at the moment what you're seeing people who are trying to reduce Britain's history into something which is particularly unsavoury. Now, of course, there's certain elements of our history which was unsavoury. There are also elements of our history which we should celebrate. For example, defeating fascism. And in the fact that we are now, in my view, for all our problems, we are one of the most successful multiracial democracies in the world. When it comes to providing protections, fighting discrimination on the grounds of race, ethnicity and religion, it might be controversial for some people to understand, but Brexit Britain is miles ahead of other EU member states, such as France, Germany and the Netherlands, when it comes to providing those protections. So I think that we just need a more all-encompassing debate which is fairer and understands the nuances of the issues surrounding race.
And the irony is, if we still had a big empire and colony, these white saviour liberals, second sons of, you know, half-successful people, would have been sent over there to run various parts of the colony and been the most racist people on earth anyway.
Absolutely.
So it's a complete embarrassment. You know, what's next? Do we rename White City?
Well, I think there's many people that are very...
I wanted to rename it. I find it offensive.
There are some people who are insecure in their middle-class privilege. Just accept the fact that you're privileged, that you're middle class. If you care about fairness and justice, you can do that. But don't go over the top and don't be patronising and condescending towards ethnic minorities. It's
called racism, isn't it?
Well, I think it's something that it needs to be talked about a lot more, in a way. And I think that when you're talking about the empire, of course, there's numerous brutal episodes associated with the British Empire. But I tell you this, the Commonwealth of Nations shows that Britain learnt from its mistakes, and what it's done is you have that voluntary association of nations, and the late Queen contributed a great deal in terms of building alliances through the Commonwealth. And now you have other countries which are colonised by other former European powers. You had Togo and Gabon. They were part of the French Empire, gained independence from France. They're now members of the Commonwealth. And I think that shows that Britain is now a well-respected member of the post-colonial international community.
I think you're absolutely right, and it's worth having a bit of optimism about the future of this country rather than berating ourselves all the time.
I agree.
Thank you so much, Rakib Hassan. We did contact The Guardian, and a spokesman said, "We are concerned that some former colleagues and contributors have not had a good experience working with us, but we are disappointed they have chosen to write a partial reflection of their time at The Guardian. We always take concerns raised with us seriously, and we acted immediately to respond to the individuals, including by offering a mediation process, which took place with a mediator chosen by the individuals themselves." Thank you. Thank you very much. That was Dr. Rakib Hassan, the research analyst and culture writer. Just to note, we did contact the producers who spoke out, but they did not reply. Coming up, shiver me timbers, wind is now going to ferry our coal. All that more after the break.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even some ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, Andrew Pierce here. Join me every Friday lunchtime for a proper no-nonsense debrief of the week's events. With special guests in the studio and the GB News team on the ground, I'll be getting you up to date with news, some intelligent discussion, and my own sharp take. The weekend starts here with me every Friday lunchtime on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every weekend, it's Mark Dolan Tonight. Bigger and better, starting at 8 p.m. Friday and Saturday.
Can't be too safe. Bring it on. Has there ever been a more innuendo feature?
And Sundays, we're on at 9.
It's ridiculous.
Just get on with it. Maybe you should get a proper job.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, before we go to my next guests, I asked you earlier what awful team-building activities should the Cabinet have to do at Chequers? Remember to email your views at gbnews.uk or tweet at gbnews. Sharon says, raft building because they're on a sinking ship. Ugh, brutal, but true. Chris, make them watch an episode of Love Island. Ooh, although that would be cruelty, mental torture. They don't deserve that. Oh, I just can't imagine. No. A Twitter user says, how to fill in a tax return truthfully without using a tax haven or non-dom status. I couldn't agree more. What is it with these Conservatives and corruption? Tool says, how about making an egg protector that will stop the egg breaking when dropped from a height? Something we had to do in an interview for Centre Parks. Pretty pointless, really. Centre Parks sounds fun. Anyway, okay, so you know sailing ships, the ones that have existed since 3000 BC, well, one of the world's largest shipping companies, Mitsui OSK Lines, have unveiled a new and innovative ship using amazing wind technology called the Wind Hunter. Japanese company said, what if we could make the ultimate zero-emission seagoing vessel to reduce greenhouse gases? Sounds good, right? The only problem with this net zero sail ship is that the cargo is 90,000 tonnes of coal from Australia, bound for Japan. The irony, impeccable. It's a nice idea to go back to the days of sails on the sea, and we should always be striving to make technology more powerful and efficient. But the question is, are we going forwards or backwards? Here to break this down with me is editor of The Spectator Australia, Alexandra Marshall. Alexandra, is this the first ship of its kind?
Sadly, not the first hybrid cargo ship, but there's a whole little batch of them that these people are producing in order to make themselves feel better about the emissions of the global shipping industry, which transports about 90% of all of global's goods. The problem is, of course, that the age of sail, whilst wonderful, was not the most efficient form of transport, which is why it ended up becoming the age of coal-powered and steam-powered vessels. But now all of our really intelligent shipbuilders have decided, let's take those great efficient vessels and put giant sails on them. They call it the Wind Challenger, which is basically just a giant 60-meter, line or pole on the front of the ship, which is designed to lower their emissions by 5%, which is a huge amount.
And what happens if there's no wind? And happy Australia Day, mate, by the way. It's a good accent. I like it.
That's a terrible accent, but thank you very much for the Happy Australia Day. Basically, there's two problems. One is, what if there's no wind, which happens all the time? And that's why they've got these hydrogen fuel cells inside the ships, which take up a huge amount of space. So at some point, you're basically a ship transporting giant sails, rather than picking up 90,000 tonnes from Australia. And the other thing is, what happens if there's too much wind? And these ships, the captain of the first hybrid, which is actually called the Shofumaro, which is their little test version of this, he was saying that they can't really see out the front of it and it's a little bit unstable, which is what happens when you put a giant sail in the front of your cargo ship. So I wouldn't say this is exactly a step forward, but it is a step forward for this green ideology where they're trying to solve the wrong problems.
I mean, it sounds like a complete greenwashing and ridiculousness. But look, most importantly, does Australia deserve its own day?
Of course we deserve our own day. It's often forgotten that Australia is one of the most peaceful civilizations in the planet's history. As far as all the wars and the way cultures mix, Australia had an exceptional run in our history, and we should be very proud of what we've achieved here. But we've had the Marxists in here for the last 20 years, and they've decided the best way to celebrate Australia is to divide us by race and then start trying to tax us. So yesterday we had people calling for a race-based tax, and one of our senators declared war on the taxpayer. So that was our day yesterday. You think you've got problems? Australia has far more problems than you do.
It's really nice of them to do that the day before they celebrate their own country day. Is Western civilization ever going to recover?
Well, we're not going to recover if we keep building sailing ships to pick up coal. I mean, if we can't get our hypocrisy sorted out in technology, then we're no longer going to be the empire of enlightenment. Now, we have to remember, we built our civilization on common sense and wonderful technical solutions and the primary part of science and philosophy. And now we've got some of the worst philosophy going around in modern history. We've picked up socialism and collectivism and Marxism, which is, it's basically a virus for civilization. And we're not building anything productive, so we're going backwards. We have to get out of whatever this little phase is we're going through. It's not going to end well.
I agree with you. I think it probably takes us all the way back to education. What we're trying to do stuff in education in the UK is starting young. How do Australia treat their young people in school?
We tell our young children to hate Australia, to basically not learn anything except for activism. Our kids can recite multiple hashtags and glue themselves to various parts of the tarmac, but they can't answer any kind of philosophical or technical debate on anything. And they've got degrees in completely useless fields of study. So it's not looking good. If we're going to save this culture, then we're going to have to start educating our children, maybe even ourselves, because the school system is full of activists and most of them have failed at their own profession. So we've got failures teaching our children to hate each other, which is never a good start.
Well, let's hope that Australia, by next Australia Day, is a happier place. Thank you so much for joining me, Alex. You're not going to believe the next story. Back in 3.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8". My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This year on GB News, we've got brand new members in the family.
Join us. Across the entire United Kingdom, we cover the issues that matter to you. GB News will always stay honest, balanced and fair. We want to hear whatever is on your mind.
And we don't talk down to you.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you. Britain's watching.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Hello again. Now, our furry little friends, the bumblebees and the bees, have been in trouble for a while now, haven't they? You've probably seen the news reports. You might have even noticed yourself that there's less of them around these days. Well, would you believe it? Thanks, Cass. We've Stephen Barnes here, Vice Chair of the British Beekeepers Association, to talk about a new threat to our honey producers, critters. A banned bee-harming pesticide is to be used on crops. Stephen, good evening. Thank you for joining me. What is going on here?
Well, thank you for the invitation. Well, the neonicotinoids were banned in 2018, but the British government has chosen to use a derogation to allow its use on sugar beet crops. And that's unfortunate. Although the sugar beet crop isn't a flowering crop, it's the residual nature of the systemic pesticide that's our concern.
And am I right in thinking that the neonicotinoids basically give these bees a version of Alzheimer's, that they can't find their way back to the hive and they can't, you know, that's what these insecticides do?
Yeah, that's one of the problems. Research shows that bees that are subject to sublethal doses of neonicotinoids do have problems in navigating back to the hive, and that can have a significant impact on the strength of the hive, as well as the lethal effect of direct contact.
And so how harmful are these pesticides? I mean, they must be very effective for them to be used. Is there a way they can ever be used responsibly?
Well, as far as the neonicotinoids are concerned, I think there is a lot of evidence that they're harmful, not just to honeybees, but to all pollinators that will visit flowering plants. In my view, there's got to be a different way that sugar beet can be grown that uses different types of chemicals. And again, in my view, it's a systemic nature of the chemical where it's actually inside the plant and therefore in the nectar that the bees and other pollinators are collecting.
Can you tell me more about that? When you say it's inside the plant, it's not something that's sprayed on the plant, it's something that's on the ground and the plant sucks up? What is that?
Well, it's a seed dressing. So it's absorbed into the plant and taken up, as the plant takes up moisture from the soil, it takes up the neonicotinoids inside the plant. And that's why it's effective against the virus pest that it's there to control. But because it's in the nectar, it's being consumed by pollinators that are visiting the plant and getting their reward for pollination. And I did hear some research, I got no verification of it, but there was some research that suggested that people believed that bees would not take up the nectar because they didn't like the taste of the neonicotinoid in the nectar. Research showed that they actually prefer it.
Oh, so it's like a drug for them. They almost enjoy it more.
Yes, they'll actually, yeah. I heard that at a lecture some years ago, but I've got no further evidence that that's the case.
Why do you think everyone loves bees? And do all bees sting? Tell us the top 5 bee facts that would be great for me and us.
Why honeybees, if you've ever had anything to do with honeybees, they are intoxicating and infectious. They're wonderful animals to work with. I've been a beekeeper for 20-odd years, and I'm just infatuated with them. Some top facts: they can navigate considerable distances, up to 3 miles from the hive. They can pass that information on to their sisters to assist them in foraging by performing a dance. They can tell the time of day. They monitor the movement of the sun. And they're often forecasters of weather events. If you see them streaming back to the hive, you can expect bad weather.
Ah, there you go.
And they're they're a vital part of our food production.
Would you say they're absolutely essential to our food production, being pollinators, primary pollinators?
Not essential. We would survive in their absence, but our diet will be much plainer. We would have no top fruit. We would have no apples, pears, peaches, and so on. It would be a very bland diet without them.
Oh, we're so grateful to them.
Yeah, I was going to say they contribute hundreds of millions of pounds to the food economy in this country.
And they're beautiful, and we have such fondness for them. Well, look, thank you very much, Stephen, for joining me and filling us up with bee knowledge. Right, it's now time, oh God, for Fox on the Spot. Let's hear what you got for me. Helen, any chance of you talking to David Starkey again? Yeah, I love David Starkey. I did feel a bit slightly put in the middle yesterday between my debate with him and Femi. It was... I thought it would go, but David was quite good. And, you know, I mean, I just don't understand what the future of this country looks like when these hugely differing views. There's lots of actually stats out today about how many people are proud to be British, and it ain't good between 18 and 24. Anyway, Raymond, when are we going to stop oil from forcing their minority views on the majority? This is why we have prices going crazy. It's time for normal people to act. I agree with you, Raymond, and a little part of me does what they call a micro cheer and a microwave when they drag these little Torquils and Tarquins off the pavement and with their little bits of tarmac stuck to them or leaving their palm print on. It's a complete waste of time. I want to know who pays for them. That's the thing I'm interested in. Jeff, what's your favourite kind of bee? My favourite kind of bee has an R on the end of it, and it's called beer. But actually, there are some little bees that live in the walls. I had a little house in the country, and they used to live in the walls, and they would live by themselves. They didn't have any friends. It was just a little bee by themselves. Someone's going to phone up and tell me that's utter rubbish, but there you go. I thought they were like that. Jane, what was your favourite accent to do? The Australian was terrible. Oh, mate, terrible? Come on. I've got it nailed. It's genius. I'm going to do the whole rest of the show with it just to annoy you, babe. No, I can't do it. Do your dogs watch you when you're on TV doing your show and get sniffy at the TV and listening to your voice? Sniffy? No, but my dogs do come on when I do my section with Dan Wootton. So I leave the studio and I go bush back to the house because I've got to let them out so that they don't bespoil my carpets being left alone. So they then come and sit on the sofa behind me. But I think you're implying there that my voice isn't attractive to my dogs. And I'm a very good dog owner. Anyway, that was Fox on the Spot. Now, I am going away next week to the sun. I can't wait. Please don't rob my house. But Keep sending your views in. Some extra audience reactions for you. I asked you earlier, what team-building activities should the Cabinet have to do at Chequers? Alma says space hopper racing. I would quite like to see space hopper racing. I'd quite like to see Nadeem versus Rishi on a space hopper. But for Rishi, it would be more one of those things that kids sit on and bounce along on. James says, be honest, I think they'll all struggle with that one. Team building, exactly. They're all stabbing each other in the back 24 hours a day. Dan Wootton, ladies and gentlemen, oh, there, he arrives. Dan was far too busy. He was far too busy to turn up to work this evening, but he's now arrived. I can assure you he's getting sat in the chair and he's being spray-tanned as we speak and applying his clothes. But I would like to thank you all. I am, as I said, going away next week on holiday, for joining us this week and making it such a wonderful show. Up next, it is Dan Wootton. Are you ready for us, Dan, or shall I? Okay.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Click that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like.
Absolutely.
On Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.